Alright, so tonight I'm going to read to you scary stories to help you fall asleep. It usually helps me fall asleep. Some people like it, and I guess some just can't. So, this story is called There Is Something Living Under Grandpa's Bed. This event happened earlier this year when my grandpa was put in a nursing home. He suffers from dementia, but for the most part, he can still hold an intelligent conversation. That's what makes this story so frustrating for me, because it's hard to try and sort through what actually happened and what I perceived based on what I was told. You see, my grandpa did not want to be put in the home, and my relatives all agree that he was too hard to handle. So I put his stories down to an excuse to try and get out. Still, I did my best to keep a clear head while I prepared to investigate the nursing home after Grandpa told me that something was hiding under his bed. Every time I visited him, I saw that he had an elaborate ritual for getting out of bed, using the chair to crawl on and jump away, essentially skipping the part where his feet would be situated by the side of the bed. He said that there was a crazy man waiting, laughing and teasing him through the night. I told Grandpa that he listened to too many ghost stories. I wanted to alleviate his fears, but truth be told, I was also trying to calm myself down. Even though I'm 32 years old, with a certain amount of machismo, the idea of a crazy ghost haunting my grandpa gives me the creeps. One night, I decided to stay a little later to see what I would capture. We were sitting at the table near his bed when I asked Grandpa if I could check the bed out. For some reason, he freaked out and left the room, telling me that he did not want to be present for whatever happened. I was annoyed, but at the same time also happy to get the chance to check it out without him getting in the way. As soon as he was out of the room, a chill came over me, but I chalked it up to nerves. I went over to the bed and flicked the switch of my EVP recorder on, noticing that the chill was worse the closer I got to the bed. You know that electric charge you get when you're scared? Ramp that up to 1000% and you'll get the idea about how I felt. I jumped when I saw the sheets below about. They were touching the floor, and at first I thought the air conditioning was moving the sheets, or maybe a draft, but the icy air near the bed seemed to be contained in a certain area. I slowly got down to my knees and felt an even colder blast of air on my face, just as a hissy noise came from nowhere. I screamed and quickly crawled away, then looked back at the bed. I was angry that I didn't have a flashlight, because it seemed like something was under the bed. I wondered if it was a rat in a temper. I threw one of Grandpa's towels under the bed. What freaked me out was the sheets were dragged in a little further. Just then Grandpa and the nurse came in, so I looked a little foolish. I got up, but right away the hissy noise came back, louder this time. Grandpa yelled, "That's it, he's back, I told you." But the nurse told him he was imagining it. She went over and yanked the sheets back. Nothing was there. What was even more annoying was that I did not capture anything, but I really felt like Grandpa was telling the truth. Funnily enough, he got to move to a different room where he feels safer. The thing is, we never found out what exactly was under the bed. It seems silly to think it might follow him to his new room, but if I'm honest, it does concern me a bit. Right, so there's that story. And I've got another really good one in mind. This story is called The Man in the Fog. One night, several years ago, I arrived home from the library and parked the car in the driveway. It was quite foggy, but the streetlights were on, so I went over to the mailbox before going inside. At that point, I was not a believer in true scary stories, but what happened next changed all of that. While fishing around in the mailbox, something I saw from the corner of my eye made me turn to the right. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, as a strange figure of a man was at the other end of the street. It was strange because he was just standing there, and I assume was staring straight at me. My fight or flight reflex kicked in, and I quickly made my way to the front door, with hairs prickling on my neck. I unlocked the door, turned to have a last look, and nearly fainted. The figure was now at the end of the driveway. Something told me to go inside and lock the door. Once inside, I looked through the window, and he was gone. I was trembling in fear and could not decide whether or not to turn the lights on, but I continued to check the window. I almost jumped out of my skin when the neighbor's dog started barking loudly. My blood froze as I heard footsteps. Hearing the footsteps approaching my front door, I gasped and ran to look through the peephole. The front light was not on, but I could see the area light from the street, which was creepy due to the fog. Barely breathing, I stared through the peephole and squealed in fear when a dark shadow appeared. I was sure that it was a man wearing a wide-brimmed hat, only inches away from the door. Instinctively, I flipped the light switch and went back to look through the peephole. He was not there. I raced around the house and turned every light on while I called 911 and waited for them to answer. Then the phone went dead. In a panic, I kept redialing, but it was pointless. I didn't know what to do. I was shaking in terror as I crept into the kitchen and grabbed one of my knives. The dogs had stopped barking, and for a moment I thought that the shadow man had disappeared. Checking all the windows and slowly calming down, I went to my bedroom and sat down on my bed. I had never thought twice about true scary stories. It seemed like hours had passed, and after one more check on all the windows, I went to bed. Early the next morning, around 3 a.m., something woke me up, and I sat bolt upright, straining my ears. The silence was so deafening, but my beating heart almost hurt with the slowly building anxiety. Then the lights went out. I screamed and then leaped out of bed when I felt a cold breeze on my face. I ran through the house, and then the light suddenly came on again. I checked the windows. Nothing. I stayed up until dawn. I never saw him again, and can't explain what happened. Ever since then, I've been afraid of fog, the dark, and strange men. There you have it. 2 scary stories to go to sleep with, especially after a long, tough day. kinda eases the mind. Well, my mind anyways. So good night.